This scene right here cracked me up. I mean, our boy was, I think, moments away from being in a world of bliss, who I thought this character was just going to be like a random prostitute, but apparently is actually an adventurer, a part of these woods, which was a pleasant surprise because that means that this character that Mio and Tomoe were very, very jealous of, to the point that they almost had their way with our boy Makoto, which honestly, if he's feeling like their family, and the tears are to be believed, it's understandable why he's not pushing himself on there, because he could easily do whatever he wanted 100%. So it's not surprising to me that maybe he was a little more flustered and intrigued by what seemed to be a woman coming onto him that he had no connection of, but still, there's some spiciness to this episode. And truthfully, I didn't expect something this extreme because Makoto knows of the moves that they make on him. He's not oblivious to it, he just doesn't want it apparently. Which is fine, it's whatever is up to him. But the fact that they made such an extreme, like, they were not even just dragging him away. They stripped him down, they Spider-Man webbed up the doors and windows, and they got to the point, which I never expected. Tomoe and Mio agreed that they didn't care who was first, which, them agreeing that they don't want to be the first of something on Makoto is, you don't expect that, and was for that ice blast, goddamn, we would have entered some hentai territory that probably would have had to just have a giant black screen over. Incredible episode though. I mean, there was a lot of funny content and a lot of raunchy content, but there's actually some serious content that caught me by surprise. Like, the whole idea of death and rebirth was a pleasant surprise in this episode. We've seen plenty of content with the two central girls here, right? And they're saying, they're flustered, they're happy, they love Makoto. But the idea of them worried, besides when he gets pissed off, is something we really don't see, because he's a pretty powerful presence. They don't have to worry to the point of he's gonna get his head cut off. But the idea that they freaked out when they were eating in the woods there, and they lost the presence of their master, and they saw him, and from their point of view, that looked like suicide based on how his presence was disappearing. To see them not only break down and cry, but to have a face of worry was a pleasant surprise, because there's definitely been some questions I've had in the back of my mind. Nothing that was eating away, but the idea of his magic and his mana just continuing to grow seemingly shouldn't happen at all, and the way that it's going about it is pretty much suicide by the looks of it from their point of view is definitely a factor, and the fact that their realm is continuing to grow, eventually the goddess is going to take note, and the goddess will want to kill him. I mean, the goddess from her point of view was probably an angel even letting this ugly, hideous creature roam the earth to begin with, and the fact that we got a point in this episode where a character looked very similar to him, and he's starting to understand why people push back against his face because he kind of looks like a demi-human. It's kind of sad, man. This boy, he's a part of a world that's unrealistically beautiful, and, just an average Joe is getting shit on time and time again. The flip side, though, is because he is such a god to his realm's eyes, he's never going to have issues with women if he ever wants them, right? That's going to be easy for him. And it's not like we're just looking at actually monsters, they're the in-between human and monsters, so it's not like his romance options are going to be shitty, no way in hell. But still, that's an interesting concept, and honestly, I'm going to be interested to see how they want to wrap up this season, because we're getting pretty close to the trading starting to happen. We're getting glimpses of human entering sections of the realm that they have sealed off so that they can learn about their wares and goods. And the pieces are being made. We're seeing the training that we started last week working out quite well. Soldiers making some real progress, not really having that fear anymore, which is really nice. So I guess, where do we end? Probably with the establishing of the market and probably a cliffhanger of some sort. But it's going to be interesting because there's no guarantee this gets more anime, right? So I think if they leave off on a pretty decent cliffhanger, I think our odds are probably pretty solid at getting more. But I think if they end it in a more open-ended fashion, in the way of him establishing his company, not really having a new threat pop up that's too extreme, then I could see them maybe just ending it open-endedly and maybe coming back someday, and I hope they do, because this deserves a season 2. Now, the episode kicks off with characters who immediately had my eyes glued to the screen with their outlandish behavior. I love the voice actors for this one character and just how much of a Megami style character she felt like, and I seriously hope we get to see more of them before this anime wraps up. We got 3 episodes left to go, right? They seemingly are powerful, they have wild personalities, and they're seemingly quite shocked at our boy for being able to actually survive an attack as Mia was ready to probably become a nuclear bomb and rip their heads off as she laughed like a maniac. And honestly, there's some interesting setup, I have to admit. Like the fact that characters who I thought were just going to be a one and done, like prostitute kind of joke that wouldn't actually be committed to, ended up being some form of an adventure, unless it's just like a sister or something, which, there's characters in this show that look very similar to characters from the original world, so I wouldn't put it past the show, but still, they're still growing the cast, but it doesn't feel bloated. Given the almost nation-like creation mentality, it makes sense to keep incorporating more and more characters, even if we don't see them past the initial arc that they're a part of, right? I don't know, I just find Tsukimichi similar to, last week and even, the week before it. The episodes, if you take a step back and look at them, even an episode like this, right? It's nothing that's all that different than what you typically see, and these are the episodes that would normally be considered boring. Remove the sexual scenes and remove some of the more, intense scenes. A majority of the episode is actually sitting around planning and structuring, stuff people don't normally like to see, and from my comment section and from what I'm seeing at a distance, people are saying Tsukimichi is damn entertaining. And I don't think it's one particular thing, I think it's just because the characters as a whole are entertaining, the color palette is nice, bright and poppy, it's not this dark, grimy, dirty looking series, because that works when you're in a more mature setting where constantly bad shit is happening. But with him succeeding with his nation so far, while yes, bad things do happen and are being set up, it just lets it be naturally more interesting, because even when he's sitting on that throne and people are coming to him, the jokes just continue to pop up. The head pat scene as an example, right? He's patting little Tomoe, and I guess that, because it's her clone and kind of spirit self, it ends up working for her too. The little things make scenes that normally would be boring very entertaining, and I have to say, I remember when talking with people before this anime started up, a lot of people were saying, this one doesn't look like it's going to be that big of a production success, and I was like, what are you saying? The preview looks pretty good, but the color palette looks really solid. They're not overly bright and they're not overly dim, so it makes it a very compelling series to look at. And seriously, this show is a blessing. It's an absolute gem, and as I've said throughout different videos and comment sections, Isekai series and anime are honestly pretty damn good right now. I find myself more interested in Isekai than I ever have been, because you get a good blend of comedy and dark series, and while yes, you still have the generic Isekais being made, because so much anime is being made, a lot of the good shit's finally getting adapted, and this is a pretty older source material, and I really hope they commit to this one long term, which is a good chance given how much anime is being made. And I think as long as it's not an abysmal failure, stuff like this should get more, but I guess we'll see. Let me know your thoughts and feelings, though, on this week's sexually hilarious and violent episode with some surprising matured themes towards that middle portion with the whole suicide, almost looking like suicide thing. But let me know what you're feeling down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.